Good morning, ladies, and a very special good morning to you, Joey. Down here in Lower Manhattan at federal court, we've heard another week's worth of testimony in the trial of John Gotti, Jr., who's on trial for any number of charges, including ordering the kidnapping and assault of our very own Curtis Sliwa. This week, we got a sense of how the prosecution and the defense is really going to play this case. Gotti's charged with 3 counts of RICO conspiracy. Count 1 is a broad count in just saying basically that he's a mobster. And for that count, it looks like the defense is going to say, as they did in the previous 3 trials, that Gotti withdrew from organized crime in 1999 when he pled guilty to another case. Now, the prosecution has to prove, in order for that withdrawal defense not to work, that Gotti was still active in organized crime 5 years prior to the indictment. So that would mean Gotti would still have to be active in organized crime after July of 2003. To that end, we heard testimony from a cooperating witness, or RAT, as those in the defense circles call them, Michael Finnerty. Finnerty was a criminal associate of Gotti's for many years and was arrested last year for some similar racketeering charges. Finnerty testified that every year, with the exception of 3 years in the early 1990s, he would pay John Gotti Jr. tribute, something that all mob associates and mob soldiers are expected to kick up to their soldiers or their bosses. So Finnerty said that the last tribute payment he gave John Gotti was on Christmas of 2004. If that's true, that would seem to bolster prosecution claims that Gotti continued to be active in organized crime after 2003. However, upon cross-examination, Charles Carnesi, Gotti's lawyer, got Finnerty to admit that he never gave money directly to Gotti, and that was always through an intermediary. The stickier situation for Gotti could be counts 2 and 3. Count 2 is ordering the murder of George Grasso, a Queens drug dealer, and count 3 is ordering the murder of Bruce Gutterup, another drug dealer. What the defense is going to argue is that these men were murdered because John A. Light, who we heard from last week, wanted them killed for his own criminal purposes, not upon Gotti's orders. So again, it's all going to come down to how credible the jury finds John A. Light. Right now, we're hearing testimony from Mikey Scars. Mikey Scars testified at each of the previous three trials and was a very close friend and confidant of John Gotti Jr., in addition to being a captain in the Gambino family. In fact, it was Mikey Scars who testified that it was he and Gotti that planned the attempted assault on Curtis Sliwa. It remains to be seen how credible Scars will be to the jury and how his testimony will mesh with that of A. Light and others. On Thursday, we heard a very interesting piece of audio from John Gotti Sr. talking to John Gotti Jr. about how they used to fix juries. It was the clearest piece of audio we've heard of Gotti talking to his father to date, and we'll see how that plays with the jury. So again, it all comes down to, for count 1, was Gotti active in organized crime after 2003? And counts 2 and 3, do they believe A. Light's story that Gotti ordered the murder of these 2 drug dealers? For UbaTV.com, from Manhattan Federal Court, I'm Frank Morano.